What happened to millions of investor dollars is becoming clear as a massive securities fraud case winds down in its fourth week in Hamilton County. The case follows a Local 12 investigation. On trial, ex-state representative Pete Beck, who was the chief financial officer for a company investigators say swindled investors. Local 12's Rich Jaffe is in the newsroom with the latest for us. Rich?
Cammie, it became abundantly clear today in court that the two primary companies involved in this case, Christopher Technologies and TML Consulting, were virtual money mills for a few years. But the money they were playing fast and loose with was coming from investors who thought they'd get some kind of positive return on their investment. To win their case, prosecutors from the Attorney General's office will have to tie that massive con job to Pete Beck. An obviously tired Christopher Technologies CEO John Fussner wrapped up a ninth day on the witness stand today. To satisfy a plea agreement, he's testifying against his old business partner and chief financial officer Peter Beck. Beck, a CPA, was also a state representative and head of the Ways and Means Committee at the time all this was going on. Fussner read from an email today detailing what happened when an investor's wire transfer came into his company. Instead of being invested, business partner and consultant Tom Lycett pounced.
He said if the transfer had happened, he was supposed to get $25,000 put into his account.
Did the defendant reply to that?
Yes.
And what does the defendant say?
Tell him the wire hit and Charlene put $15,000 in his account. I am working on getting him the additional 10 he needs.
Besides being the CFO of Christopher Technologies, Beck also worked as an accountant and advisor for Tom Lycett, his wife Janet Combs, and her church, Ark by the River, even writing checks for the church, which the Attorney General calls a cult. State forensic accountant Leo Fernandez detailed for the court how much investor money Lycett and his wife took out of his company accounts.
$1,372,861.10. The $620,000 to the Tom Lycett, Janet Combs, and the church is not included in the $1,372,000 number I just gave you.
And as for Christopher Technologies,
there was no product buildup. They didn't have any inventory. The chief executive officer, John Fussner, was getting paid a exorbitant amount of salary. There were health insurance costs on the balance or on the profit loss sheet that totaled like $68,000 a year on the one financial I looked at. They had a 401k match. They had expenses that were totally unnecessary.
Now, as we established in our 2012 investigation, Peter Beck was the chief financial officer for that company, although his team is trying to argue that. Next week, we'll hear from the investors. In the newsroom, Rich Jaffe, Local 12 News. Cammie?
All right, Rich, thank you. All of Pete Beck's co-conspirators, including church leader Janet Combs, were also indicted, but they have all taken plea deals in exchange for testifying against him.